What's up, everyone? Online Prep Coach Oscar here with PrepCoach.com, back with another, peaking segment. I forget what I call these, if they were case studies or something like that. But either way, I ended up, and I really wanted to do this one because I was posting up a lot about this guy. And sometimes the reason why I post up a lot about one person and not another one is because some people are straightforward clients. Some people that you can fill them up easy, you can dry them out easy. There's really no thought behind it. Or at least for me, whenever you've done this, again, hundreds and thousands of times, these things just add up. You see trends and you see little things that you have to do to adjust, manipulate, and just really monitor, because obviously with everything, it's never a one-step equation. Obviously in bodybuilding, in our physique, or even performance enhancement, there are always little things that are going to be day-to-day. They're going to vary. We're going to have environmental change. We're going to have stressors. We're going to have all these different things going on. And with this guy in particular, some people just have a propensity to hold fluid on certain areas. So the worst case you could have is someone that their glutes flatten out very quickly and their glutes tend to accumulate a lot of fluid. Now this guy, I don't want to name him by name because I believe originally he didn't want his face out there, his name out there. So this was a really good friend of mine. We worked together for an 8-week prep. And the picture you're going to be seeing on the screen right now is from the beginning of peak week until show day. So there's going to be 8 pictures of a back double bicep shot. And you can see that, first of all, in 8 weeks' time together, we dropped about 25 or 28 total pounds. When he came to me, he wasn't in a bad position, but at the same time, he wasn't really in the best position to be at 8 weeks out. So we did have to push up the process. Now, as you could tell, looking at that first picture, his back is flat. His glutes, his hamstrings are flat. Everything is so exceedingly flat. And we found this out throughout the entire prep of his refeeds. So what you want to do is actually use these refeeds to basically use it as a gauge of, okay, what fills out, what doesn't fill out. How do they spill? Where do they spill at? What amount of carbohydrates do they spill out? What is their fluid intake like? What is their sodium intake? Their overall ion and mineral consumption? What does it look like? And that's going to dictate a lot of how you're going to peak someone. Now, we found that 1,000 grams of carbs always made him spill. No matter what it was, he was spilling, and that's not where we wanted him to be. So we ended up going through, and I want to go ahead and take you through his actual peak week process. Now, some little things out of the way. If you've ever worked with me, I generally like to keep these initial notes for peaking a lot of people the same. We generally stop all cardio during peak week. It's going to interfere with, obviously, the filling out process. It's generally just going to be good practice to allow people's legs to recover, because if they've been depleted, if they've been doing cardio every day or multiple sessions per week throughout the entire prep, most likely their legs could just use the break and they almost change and morph in that period. So we take cardio off. We are basically having them check in every day. I make sure that they don't think or they don't overthink anything. I want them sticking to the exact same food sources they had the entire prep. Don't want anything that's going to cause bloating. And then fluid and sodium is going to change from the person to person and from the situation to situation. The glucose, the amount of glucose we're going to be switching to, whether we are backloading, whether we are front loading, mid loading, whatever. We did a somewhat I'll call it a mid load, because we ended up adding in carbohydrates on Thursday and Friday, mainly because in the past, sometimes when he took in 800 grams of carbs, he spilled, and sometimes when he took in 800 grams of carbs, he literally just looked perfect. So we wanted to have that extra cushion of, okay, what's going to happen on Thursday? We wake up Friday, we see what happened, and we correct that. So with him particularly, we went about and started off 7 days out, basically priming for this glycogen load. This was a rest day of training. He was taking in 250 grams of protein, 0 carbohydrates, and only 50 grams of fat. Yes, that is extremely low. That is something that, again, it's just something that this person absolutely needed. We kept all the extra additional supplementations the same. Nothing really changed. Even metformin, we kept at 500 milligrams before bed every night. I prefer metformin either upon waking or before bed for different reasons. In prep, I really like how it clears out glucose out of the bloodstream overnight. Again, metformin is working on a consistent daily basis. It's not really time dependent when you really look at the pharmacokinetics of the drug. But at the same time, it's just very simple and very easy to put it in them. So 6 days out, we're still priming for our glycogen load. We ended up doing a leg training circuit. I do these same kind of circuits for all my competitors because I've just seen a lot of people get injured and hurt because they're still trying to build muscle during peak week. Not only that, but there's a lot of people that work with me who are very much like-minded like myself, where, you know what? they just literally cannot pull themselves back in the gym. So switching the training completely, literally just doing enough pump work, no compound movements, very little break in between sets, and maximizing blood flow, nutrient partitioning, keeping 3 sets of 12 to 20 reps in kind of a big super circuit fashion really tends to work very well. So this was the last day we hit legs. We kept, actually this day, we dropped protein a little bit to 230 grams, upped carbohydrates to 75 grams, dropped fats to 30 grams, and took in another 500 milligrams of metformin before bed. All their supplements stayed the same. Fast forward to 5 days out, still priming for a glycogen load, but today was a chest, delts, triceps, and ab circuit. Same setup as the one day before. We kept fluid and sodium. I should have mentioned this at the beginning. At 7 days out, we jacked up sodium and jacked up fluids through the roof. The reason why we're doing this is because, remember, you want to pair glucose with your fluids and with your minerals together. So you're thinking, okay, you just said that. Where's all the glucose if you're adding in all this fluid and sodium? Well, you want to get your body ready. The worst thing you could do is throw a bunch of carbs, a bunch of fluid, and a bunch of sodium at the last minute. That's when people spill over. That's when people hold fluid and just look horrible. So we want to get some of the variables out of the way earlier in the week so that your body can acclimate. And as you can tell based on the pictures, that's when his back started to fill out. That's when his glutes started to fill out. You start seeing those lines coming in, especially if you're looking at those pictures in his hamstrings, in his glutes, and in his lower back. So food-wise, we kept it the same, 230 grams of protein, 75 grams of carbohydrates, 30 grams of fat. And then at that point, we stopped any kind of other supplement that is going to be applied, obviously, intramuscularly. We don't want to have anything that can cause a welt or run into any issues. So we did drop that out, and we switched to more of the oral-based compounds. We went over next day, 4 days out, still priming for the load. This day was a lats, biceps, and ab circuit, same way as everything before. Fluid and sodium still extremely high. And on this day, we jacked up protein just a little bit, increased our fats a little bit, and lowered the carbohydrates to 0 grams. Again, at this point, there are only orals and metformin in the equation. A couple other little things here or there, but it's just because something like, a traditional thing like growth hormone that people like to drop right away. You know what? If you're going to be using a diuretic, then this isn't something that you really need to worry about, because that diuretic is going to take care of the job, and we already have his peak week planned to get rid of extracellular fluid, but we want to keep that intracellular volumization, so I don't feel like people should be dropping things that keeping them full and big whenever you're going to be taking care of the extra fluid anyway. So 3 days out, we continued to deplete. This was a full body circuit, fluid and sodium still high. Proteins at 250 grams of protein, 0 grams of carbohydrates, and 50 grams of fat. The other supplements were kept the same. 2 days out, this is where the carb load began. We stopped training, kept our fluid high, kept our sodium high, ended up taking in 250 grams of protein and 500 grams of carbohydrates with as little fat as possible. He is someone who responded, and remember, this is where the biological differences really come in. He's someone who responded very well to high glucose and a moderate amount of protein and didn't need a bunch of fats to really fill out. So, or at least we didn't need those up until show day, which obviously is going to help the whole, process as a whole. But in terms of timing wise, was very happy about that. As you can see in the pictures on the screen, and it's going to be the same picture throughout because I feel like this illustrates this point the best. Those carbs and everything did its job. Other supplementation was kept the same because the following day he wakes up and there you see back's dry, glutes are dry, everything, lines are coming in, not full, but lines are coming in and he's drying out. Obviously, at this point, we realized, okay, you can still be a little bit more full. You're going to dry out, no problem. We already know how to dry you out. The original plan was to take in another 500 grams of carbs, which I believe we only took in 275 or 300 grams of carbohydrates. I believe it was somewhere around that amount. We lowered it. Again, this was all conversations had over Facebook Messenger, and we didn't stick to the original game plan because his physique told us differently. So we did end up taking half a tab of diazide midday as well as before bed. We cut off water at 5 p.m. and we did still have a little bit of carbohydrates in his system, but nothing crazy. Show day, we woke up, and this is something that I don't know. I know I can't be the first person to ever freaking do this, but a lot of people don't need a bunch of protein on show day to fill out. That's just something that you don't really need. This is where you need your glucose, your fats, your sodiums, your minerals, and everything to suck and really peak at the right time. And I find that usually protein, will hinder digestion for certain people, will cause that bloating in the abdominal region, and doesn't allow nutrients to get to where we want it to go because it's just sitting in your stomach. So we woke up, he checked in, he had 10 grams of essential amino acids mixed with a pump formula with a decent amount of, actually a very little amount of water. I think we stuck to 4 or 6 ounces. We had 40 grams of carbohydrates from a normal source, and I believe it was after, or no, it was at this meal that we had 2 whole eggs, 2 pieces of bacon, and 2 sausages. Again, all of the sodium, all of the fat in there, we knew how he would respond to that, so that's why he took that in. Then 6 hours out from the stage, we repeated the same meal from the first, but without the eggs, sausage, and bacon, because at that point, the sodium, the fats, everything was doing its job in his body. And then he stuck to another meal, repeated that meal, and he actually missed the last meal he was supposed to take in, I believe, before he got on stage, because he said they started early. And even with that, he would have been a little bit more fuller and a little bit harder and a little bit dry if he did get in that extra bolus of carbohydrates and salt and fluid, but he still nailed his peak. I would say he would have been at 100% if he got that extra meal in, but still coming in here at 98%, I thought was the best he ever looked. And as you can compare the pictures, his back, his glutes, everything is dry. His hamstrings are dry. His glutes are dry. His back is dry. Everything is full. He peaked and morphed perfectly. The reason why he didn't win his class was because he was out-muscled from everything that he said and other people said. He just, he was the most conditioned guy up there, but he simply wasn't the biggest. So whenever you have some people, and again, it's going to be the lineup, the judges, there's so many things to take into consideration. But for me, the only thing I care about is bringing my athletes in the best that they could possibly look. Some genetic freak could always show up, or you know what, maybe you're just not genetically blessed in bodybuilding, but as long as we bring you in the best we possibly can, I'm fucking happy. So we absolutely nailed his peak, but this is the perfect situation of where people can only have glutes on show day, and I mean peeled, dry glutes on show day. I'm still waiting to get professional pictures in from him because, again, this was just a stage shot from a camera. And if he looks this good on a camera, wait till you see the professional shots. I cannot wait for those. But he's someone who his glutes flatten out and his glutes tend to hold a lot of fluid. So if you have this situation, if you're the person who you're during peak week and you know you have shredded glutes, but they're not showing through, look at how you're peaking. Look at what you're doing with fluid. Look at what you're doing with sodium and other minerals and other, especially your glucose. This is where the experience comes in. You can read all the books. You can experience a lot by working with a lot of people, but it's only until you've seen this a couple hundred times that you start to really pick up on the patterns and know, okay, it's a simple plug and play. That's really, I hate saying that about peak week because everyone's so different. Everyone requires different things. But I've done this so many times. It literally is, oh, I've seen this situation before. I think this person's going to do this. We apply it. Oh, he did do this. We're going. We're good. We're just going to stick with it. Or he doesn't respond the way we wanted to. Oh, he did this. Oh, I know how to fix this because I've done this 1,000 times before. We're going to do this. Plug and play. He's good to go. So as always, take your own peak week into your own hands. In terms of realizing it's your own situation, whether you're doing it with a coach or yourself, realize that everyone's going to need to peak differently. Thank you guys so much for listening. Check out theprepcoach.com. See you next time.